I understand that most people don't like to be told there's a correct way to do something. I get that most people want to live in a world where every method is equally valid to do everything, but that's not true. My issue is not that people disagree with me on that, it's how they go about expressing that disagreement. Instead of saying, you think there is one mechanism in which language is acquired. Interesting, sir. I believe there are actually multiple. Instead of that, they say how horrible, how cruel, how close-minded. There are actually multiple ways to learn a language, you bigot. If you want to argue there are many ways to learn a language, use logic. Don't use virtue signaling. Do not rest your case on the fact that saying there's one way to do something sounds mean, because that's just not a good argument. There are many things in this world that are done in exactly one way. We all digest food in one way. We all breathe in one way through the respiratory system. When a bone breaks in our bodies all use the same healing process to mend the bones. Plants only get usable energy through photosynthesis, just one way. Imagine if I walked into biology class and I said, "Excuse me, I'm actually very uncomfortable with the idea that there's only one way the body digests food." That seems incredibly close-minded. Different bodies have different preferences. We should all acknowledge that there are many equally valid ways of digesting a sandwich. So if you believe there are many ways to learn a language, well, that's awesome. Just please explain why without calling everybody who disagrees with you a close-minded fool. If you notice, I never do that to anybody when I speak in my videos. I never make the idea that the brain learns a language in one particular way a moral issue. I never say that if you disagree with me, you're a bad person, because that's very, very stupid. Secondly, even if we are arguing that there are many different ways to learn a language, that's just such a completely unhelpful statement. There are also many ways of swimming, yet some ways of swimming are better than others. If you swim in the wrong way, you will drown. There are many ways of learning how to play a guitar. Some will make you improve quickly, and some will make you improve very, very slowly. So even if you think there are multiple methods the brain can use to learn a language, are you suggesting that they're all equal? Is smashing ourselves in the face with a textbook the same as flashcards, the same as listening to TV in Spanish while you sleep? Or are we allowed to discern better and worse methods? If you believe that we can, then coming to my comment section and calling me a fraud and telling me there are an abundance of unique and special ways for humans to learn languages, not only are you calling me a bad person, your comment isn't fully honest. Full honesty would be saying, I believe there are a handful of efficacious methods that we need to learn a language, and those would include grammar study, flashcards, textbooks, and listening to the language. But the reason people don't say that is because they open themselves up to the same criticism that they're making about me. Some more virtuous person might come along and say, "Wow, you believe there are only 4 ways to learn a language? How close-minded. There's actually 13 ways, you bigot." And then the next guy comes along and says, "You guys are both bigots. There's 106 different ways to learn a language." And instead of having an actual logical discussion, we just get a contest to prove who's the most method-inclusive language learner. I make videos for the past version of me who, when starting out in language learning, was told that there are a million ways to do it and they're all equal and special. It kept me unable to even understand what language learning was for years. What beginners actually need is a logical framework with which they can verify the efficacy of, competing methods. Otherwise, to pick a language learning method, you're asking a beginner to just pick up a dart, throw it at a dartboard, and whatever it lands on, they're all equal and special. Smash a textbook on your head, who knows? There are better and worse ways of learning things in life. There are ways of learning things that won't help you improve at all. I believe there is only one mechanism that produces native-like speaking and listening fluency, and that's understanding messages. And I believe that because of reasoning, experience, and empirical data, not because I'm trying to be a mean person. And the method I believe is best is a deduction from that mechanism, which is listening to the language at a level you understand. And the way I see other methods are generally as a distraction from the long, boring road to success. I don't hear there are 10 ways to learn a language and think to myself, what a great message for beginners. I think what a great way to distract beginners and potentially have them waste tons and tons of time doing activities that don't seem to me to be backed by sound principles. And so I'm not being adamant about one method to be mean. I'm doing it because I genuinely think that what most input-based learners need is reassurance that fluency does come with time. What energized me in early hours was seeing other people who were ahead of me talk about the process. And that's why I make these theory and motivation videos, to help people stay on that straight and narrow path to fluency. Everybody's going to have their little variations on how they go about listening to the language. How much translation do you do? How much grammar explanation do you get? Do you talk to GPT about the structure of the language? Even somebody as input-based as Steve Kaufman, in his anti-flashcard video, talks about how he does little matching pairs between translations and words when he's finished with his short stories. So everybody does this. The shift for me, what took me from failing to learn a language to succeeding, was this shift in understanding that everything outside of listening, that was all supplemental. Grammar and vocab and all these things are impotent on their own. They're only useful insofar as they help you understand the message. It seems like the general idea about what I believe floating around YouTube kind of collapses that nuance and just says, you know, I'm just a full ALG person. You know, if you even do one grammar rule, you're going to just corrupt your fluency for the rest of your life. But not only do I not think that, like in 2 videos ago I said that I disagree with that. So I was talking to an Arabic comprehensible input creator recently, and he joked with me that the traditional Arabic courses, they only ever have beginner. They don't have intermediate, they don't have advanced. And that's because, in my opinion, these courses are just designed to keep you in beginner hell forever, because they make it seem that the ability to understand and produce native speech is just gonna emerge from you one morning in a euphoric burst. You're gonna wake up on Christmas morning like Scrooge and realize that all the grammar and all the vocab has finally paid off, and all of a sudden you can speak and understand the language perfectly. The boring, hard thing is the champion of learning anything in life. Doing 100 weird, complex things is what keeps people in beginner hell forever. And I have to say this because I think it's true. I might be wrong, but I think that cohort of people in beginner hell is way overrepresented in YouTube comment sections. It's the exact same thing in finance YouTube. You have thousands of people in the comment section, thousands of videos talking about how you can get rich day trading, while the silent majority of people who are actually successful in investing just buy stocks and hold them for years and years and years and let them just compound without constantly buying and selling. And it turns out that day traders in the long run do usually worse than traditional investors while spending, days of day trading, days of thinking about stocks, what they're going to buy, what they're going to sell, putting in thousands of times the effort for a worse result. Or in fitness YouTube, 75% of the content is about strange exercises and complex diet routines where the reality is the only thing you need to do to lose weight is to just eat less food. It's hard, it's boring, and it's very, very simple. Humans have this extraordinary ability to complicate processes whose hardest part is simply sustained execution. Everybody wants the result, and they'll tell you they're willing to put in like a really tough, sprint to get it. But nobody likes this idea of a giant time commitment, a huge time commitment. It's very unattractive. People can get that burst of energy that allows them to sprint for a certain amount of time, but not a lot of people can do the marathon. So to summarize the video, Stop saying there are many ways to do a language as if doing so makes you a good person. Be honest about what methods you think work and why, and just recommend those methods, just like I do. I think listening to the language at a level you understand is the most efficacious method, and you think it's that plus 3 other things. That's great. That means we both believe there is a finite set of methods that work. You just believe in 3 more than I do. And to beginners, be careful about which advice you follow. Be careful of advice that's simply designed to make you feel good if your actual goal is to get fluency in a language. Be careful of advice that says language learning is this complex thing that you need some secret formula to master. Be careful of advice that promises too much too quickly. I succeeded in language learning because I had the discipline, the environment, and I had a functional theory that I was given to explain how all this actually works. I put my faith in that theory for a time, I saw results, and I realized its implications about what it means to learn a language. I'm totally okay with hurting people's feelings if it helps them in the long run, right? If you watch this video and you hate everything I say, but then you think about it later and you're like, maybe I'll think about that. If I can change your opinion but I hurt your feelings, I might have hurt your feelings, but in 2 years you'll be fluent in Spanish. So, seems to me to be a fair trade. I have the sequel to my last video coming out next. This was a detour because I felt it necessary to say. If you missed my last theory video, I'm going to put it right here so you're all caught up for the sequel. You can watch that and be caught up. I will see you there.